We're going to continue on the sports vein now with Naomi Osaka's decision to withdraw from the French Open. Rather than continuing to engage with the media after matches, it's caused quite a stir in the sports and media fraternity. The tennis superstar says she needed to preserve her own mental health. She put herself first. A few years ago, of course, or over the years, we've seen various sports people putting their foot down when it comes to this kind of thing, but it still does cause a stir. To talk a little bit more about this, I'm joined in studio by Lerato Malekutu. She is a sports PR and communications consultant. Lerato, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, in your previous life, you for many years, I don't want to age you, but I feel like it was it a decade?
It was more than a decade.
Like a decade. Lerato was the person you needed to know from a media perspective with the national cricket team, with the Proteas. And I'm sure you can write a book if you haven't already started writing a book. I mean, one of the first stories that came to mind was one involving Hashim Amla. I can't remember, I think you would have been with the team at the time when he too had a moment of not wanting to engage with the media because he wasn't in the best space. You tweeted when the Naomi Osaka story was unfolding that you said, I've seen firsthand how crippling media interactions can be for some players. While the media serve an important function, players aren't robots either. We need to meet each other halfway. When you saw this story unfold at Roland Garros in Paris with this young superstar, we forget how young she is and so many other stars like her. What were some of the first stories that came to mind from your experience with the national cricket team with dealing with elite athletes like that?
I think the first thing that came to mind was, wow, that's a brave. She's brave. Because a lot of people will just sort of put one foot in front of the other while suffering with it and still continue. And sometimes people might think, oh, she seemed a bit off in that press conference. Like, oh, what was wrong? Or, you know, so she was brave to put it out there, to put it to the world. And I guess, you know, it was disappointing to see some of the negative feedback that she got, because I don't think people really understand what athletes do go through in those situations. But also the media are there, and they're there to do their job. So, like I said, I think if we all meet each other halfway, and with some understanding too, you know.
Tell me, if you can, share with us some of your personal experience. You said you've seen firsthand how crippling media interactions can be with some players. Perhaps you don't even have to mention names. Are there one or two instances that comes to mind where you realize just how crippling this can be? Because you're not just dealing with great bowlers, tennis players, rugby players or whatever. You're dealing with a human being, and we are all very different in how we react to pressure.
Definitely. And you speak about the experiences. I mean, I had this one time. I mean, you were in the UK, and you know how the UK press are very hectic. And this one player, he'd done an interview, and he's one of those that is always very, after a press conference, like, okay, how do you think that went? Oh no, did I say something wrong? You know, things like that.
Quite nervous.
Very nervous. And you don't realize it when you get a call at 5 a.m. in the morning with this guy. Is like, okay, I'm going downstairs to check the paper. What did they say?
Wow.
I mean, you're an international, you're preparing for a match, and this is what they're going through. And on the other hand, you know, I mean, you have players and your captains who it's their responsibility. And I go back to that 2015 World Cup, you know, that semi-final where, you know, heartbreak. And, you know, you see a captain like A.B. de Villiers, you see how hard it was for him. And, you know, you understand that he's hurting, and you still have to take him to go and answer these questions because the nation expects it. Everybody expects it. But if it was up to me, I would have said, A.B., you know what?
You don't have to do this right now.
I understand what you're going through. Just sit it out. But you understand there's a bigger picture.
And especially as a captain, it's part of his roles and responsibilities is to face up to the media, isn't? But that doesn't mean that it's not difficult. I mean, I think I remember being at that press conference at OR Tambo when they came back, and the question I asked, and I suppose it was always up to me to ask the so-called soft and fluffy, as they call it. And I said, you know, there's so many fans who can't even look at cricket, at a cricket game right now because they're hurting. And so much that's happening in cricket has hurt fans. How do you feel? And I remember he paused and he says, that's such a good question, because it's almost like nobody's ever asked him how he feels, because they do take what they do very seriously. But more importantly, the reaction that they get from fans strikes a chord. They're not robots, as you said. In a team setup like yours, or in a role like you have played, and now as a consultant as well, how do you go about helping athletes, elite athletes, prepare for what they might face from the media, and also how to deal with what they might feel as a result of reactions from your ordinary Joe Soap sports fan?
Absolutely. And you mentioned that, Naomi's young, and for me, you need to start young. You get a lot of young, talented athletes who get thrust into the limelight, who get thrust into the sport, and they don't know. And often they think, oh no, the media, I'm scared, oh, what are they going to ask me? They almost see the media as a bad thing. And for me, no, they are here to serve a function, and you're here to serve a function. It's so important to try and separate the two, because your job is on the field, but it also is a big part of your job. So understand that they'll be there, understand that the tough questions will be asked, but for you, it's being prepared to answer those questions and then moving on and leaving it and then carrying on with your job. Because once you start trying to look at everything and psychoanalyze every answer that you've done, it's never going to help you. You're just going to always be stuck there. And with this negative impression of the media, because like, it's in the news today, next week they've carried on, it's something else. So it's just learning to deal with that on a continuous
basis. Let's talk about the role of the media, because, people were torn when we first heard Naomi saying she's not going to do any media. I was one of them, because I thought, but it is part of your job. Before you talk about that she's very young or that she's a gazillionaire as a result of it, what is the role of the media? I've listened to some of those tennis press conferences as well. And like there was a great article in the Guardian newspaper this week where they speak about some of the rooms that you go into as an athlete where the media are gathered. They're still very much middle-aged or old. They're still very much white, and they're still very much male. Here comes a young Haitian-Japanese woman at the top of her game, and who is introverted. She's an introverted person. She said that. She happens to be really good at what she does, and she's faced with a certain tone from a certain guard inside the media. The media has something to answer for there as well, don't they?
Absolutely. I saw that article as well, and, the thing I took out was, as the media, you must also look at ourselves, or the media must look at themselves too. But again, I wanted to just say, I wonder if Naomi wasn't a gazillionaire, if she would have still done it.
Because I can carry the fines, can't I?
Exactly.
Where do we meet halfway here? Is it about training for athletes? Is it for the media to understand that they no longer are the people that are the go-between, that there is social media, there is the internet, there are content platforms that athletes can use? Where is the middle road here, so that we can make sure that both stakeholders on both sides are still able to operate to the best of their abilities and do their jobs?
Yeah, I think for me it's understanding. I mean, I've been in situations where, a certain player did not feel comfortable doing the media, and there's an expectation that the player was supposed to come, and then the media are just tweeting, oh my word, how could that person not come, X, Y, and Z. And for Naomi to be open about it, I think maybe the way she did it wasn't probably the best way. There could have been a better way for her to communicate how she's feeling and how she wants to deal with things. But for me, it's the media understanding that these guys are humans, and, sometimes if a no comes, it's a no. But, they're there as well to tell stories, and there are beautiful stories to be told. And if players are in the right environment, in the right mental framework, they will be able to tell those stories. But you can't just switch play and say, okay, I want to talk to you, speak to me right now, So I think if we meet each other halfway, you understand sometimes, maybe it's not a good day, and it's okay. It's nothing against you. It's just really how I'm feeling. But then 2 weeks later, a month later, the player will be, gone through whatever they were going through, and it's like, okay, we can talk now.
It's about relationship building, I suppose. And I suppose, like I saw the conversation on social media as well, that from a young age, the young athletes need to be taught about what the role of the media is, and it's not something that they need to be afraid of. And if they understood how the media works, that perhaps that will help them manage what they have to do as well. Oh, it's an ongoing topic, isn't it?
You're never going to end. But I'm so happy that it's been brought to light, because, in the time of COVID, in the time of bubbles, I think the mental health space of the athletes, it's really taken a toll. And, we can't just keep going, churning. How we just go.
Yeah, it's a sausage machine. You have to keep going. Do it in the bio bubble. You're great at what you do. You're earning $1 million. That doesn't explain away everything, does it?
Yeah, no, I think it's important for us to have these.
Lerato, thank you so much for coming in this morning on a chilly Sunday, and all the best to you. She's a sports PR and communications consultant, and like we said, for a decade, she was the person that was the holding the fort, the media liaison with the national cricket team, with the Proteas. Thank you so much for coming in. We thank her for that.